Hey, what's ready? Welcome back to News Toast, and we got another megaton today because Jason Schreier dropped some information that Sony is actually considering pulling back on their PC strategy, and if this happens, this is kind of a game-changing moment, maybe not only for PlayStation, but really for the entire industry, including even Xbox, because this tells us some very important things about the market. And also, Xbox apparently may have quietly dropped an upgrade for their consoles, so stick around for that as well. So yeah, we got a lot to talk about today, but first, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go and get right into things though, and if you needed another reminder of just how screwed the hardware market is, well, we just got some news that the AYN Thor may receive yet another price hike in April. Now, this has been a very hot device because of its OLED dual screen functionality. It is, all things considered, the best emulation device for DS, the 3DS, and even the Wii U. So they've been selling it in batches. The latest batch will end on March 1st, and currently the prices are $250 for the Lite model. Now keep in mind, the Lite model runs on a different CPU. You may want to consider other options if you want to emulate more powerful consoles. But continuing on, the base model is currently $310, the Pro model is $370, and lastly, the Max model is $450. However, they mentioned their DRAM and storage supplier told them that prices are expected to continue rising. So they warned fans that their next batch of pre-orders, which will go live on April 1st, could possibly go up. And right now, they don't know what the price will actually be. It all just depends because of everything is just so fluid right now, which really is just too bad. Unfortunately, this could be a major problem for really all gaming companies for the foreseeable future. Oh, and Marathon's playtest just got off to a fast start with more than 140,000 concurrent players on Steam. Now, I have seen some outlets run with the idea that our creators' viewer count, hit a new low because of Marathon, and okay, that might be true, but let me just say this. I know people get really excited about these concurrent numbers on Steam, but I think they're also overblown a lot of the times, and context is important. I mean, 140,000 players for a brand new single-player game that, didn't come with a ton of hype, that's big news. But Marathon, this is coming from Bungie. It is a live service game, and that alone is going to get a lot of people to try it. But as an example, Highguard nearly reached 100,000 concurrent players on its first day, but that's really not the important part when it comes to a live service game. The most important thing for any live service game is player feedback and retention rate. So all I'm trying to say is, before we run with any kind of narrative, whether it's a success or not, we should probably wait to hear player feedback and see how its first couple of weeks plays out. All I'm trying to say is that I think it's just a little bit too early to judge one way or the other. Now, we also got a quiet upgrade for Xbox consoles. Apparently, they just dropped an update that includes an upgrade for Xbox Cloud Gaming on their consoles. Now, you will need to be subscribed to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. That's always important to keep in mind. But if you are, then the Xbox Series and Xbox One consoles will now be able to game stream up to 1440p with high-bit streaming, which will result in a more crisp picture. And that's always been my big complaint regarding Xbox cloud streaming. They have made a very loud push into cloud streaming, but ironically, I've never really had a great experience with their solution. Now, it has been adequate at times, but it's really never been good enough that I would consistently use it for a wide variety of games. Now, admittedly, it's been a little while since I last tried it. Maybe it's, improved since then, but personally, every time I've ever tried to use it, it's always had a blurry picture. So hopefully this will be a notable upgrade. And I mean, honestly, this could make the Xbox One specifically a little bit more future-proof. A lot of game streaming on consoles is more so to test a game before you download it. But in the case of the Xbox One, this does make playing next-generation games a little bit more viable. So there is that. But I want to hear from you all. What's your experience with Xbox Cloud Gaming? Have you had a good experience or not? Now let's go and talk about PlayStation, though, and before we even get into their PC strategy, I first want to talk about Resident Evil 9 on the PlayStation 5 Pro, because Digital Foundry, in a rare instance, seemingly were blown away by the PS5 Pro version. And when you see the footage, it is a notable difference. The PS5 Pro has ray tracing, has high frame rate, improved hair, and it's basically everything that Sony initially advertised the PS5 Pro to be. It is kind of that mid-generation refresh that takes games up a level, and Resident Evil Requiem puts that on full display. Now, okay, we can debate that, it took them long enough to get a flagship title to really showcase what the PS5 Pro is truly capable of, but hey, if anything else, Resident Evil 9 is a good game to do that with. And if they can start to stack a few of these games together, then the PS5 Pro will be in a better position. I mean, let's just hypothetically say that GTA 6 also comes out and is notably better on a PS5 Pro than it is on other consoles. That would be a big win for Sony and the PS5 Pro to have two of the biggest games of the year to perform notably better on its platform. Now, that's assuming GTA 6 doesn't get another delay, which, there's questions about that, but whatever the case may be, Resident Evil 9 really kind of feels like one of the first games that makes the PS5 Pro price tag not flat out egregious. Now, again, they need to consistently do this with more games, but that's the thing right now. Right now, because Resident Evil 9 looks so much better on the PS5 Pro than it does on other consoles, there is speculation going around that it's secretly using PSSR 2.0. Now, I don't know about all that, but I will say this much. The PS5 Pro very much is a way for Sony to beta test for their next generation console, because it's fairly clear that PSSR is a big part of their future strategy. They launched it early to basically beta test and to improve it over time. And now that the PS6 is likely delayed, possibly by multiple years, well, the PS5 Pro is now in a situation where it can maybe prove its value if some of the upcoming PSSR updates are as good as what everybody hopes it will be. If Resident Evil 9 is an example of what we're going to see in the future, then it could actually end up being a great experience for the long run. All right, now let's just go and talk about PlayStation and their PC strategy, though. They've been supporting PC for years now, and by all indication, it would seem like they are prepared to ramp up. They, of course, acquired Nixxes to handle their PC ports, and there's even been speculation that they'll eventually launch their own PC launcher. So that's why it's a bit of a surprise to hear that they're instead preparing to scale back their PC operation. Yeah, this comes from Jason Schreier and also corroborated on by Nate the Hate. In fact, even Jez Corden heard something similar late last year. So this news actually does seem legitimate, but I'll go and read what Jason Schreier said. This was a part of the Triple Click podcast where he said, I think for them, their strategy is like live service games are coming to PC. But I think the sense I'm getting is that they're backing away from putting their exclusive console stuff like traditional single-player stuff on PC. They then kind of went back and forth about it, and he pointed out that he doesn't believe that Wolverine will come to PC. I do recommend listening to the podcast, but he clarified on Resetera by saying it's not speculation, but sometimes topics come up on the show before I'm quite ready to publish a story about them. More to come soon, I'm sure. Thanks for listening to Triple Click. This week's episode was a lot of fun. So it sounds like he is preparing a story about what he knows and why he thinks they're pulling back on their PC strategy. But I'll say this much. Sony has always had this mindset that they can do staggered releases for PC because they're still prioritizing their consoles, which personally I think is fine because I do think that exclusives are important for consoles. I understand Sony's decision to prioritize their established user base and ecosystem, but at the same time, staggered releases are obviously going to impact their success on PC. It's likely one of the main reasons why some of their games haven't exactly put up major numbers on the PC platform. So maybe because of that, Sony isn't exactly overwhelmed by their PC efforts. Now, if they do pull back on PC though, this will pretty definitively tell us that the extra money that they can make on their staggered PC games isn't quite enough to offset the importance of what an exclusive can bring to their own ecosystem. I think one of the mistakes that people often make when they talk about exclusives is that, only that game sales numbers matters, which just isn't true. It's also about getting people within an ecosystem and getting those people to give them continued purchases. As an example, maybe somebody bought the PlayStation 5 specifically for Spider-Man 2, but then after that, they bought other games on the PlayStation 5, and then they even subscribed to their service. So that person first entered their ecosystem because of Spider-Man 2, but they have since given them a lot more money. And I think that's actually very interesting, not just for PlayStation, but also for Xbox as well. I mean, there's obviously been a lot of discussion about Xbox exclusives this past week. Sounds like the new CEO is going to look into the data and whether or not they should bring back exclusives to Xbox. Now, okay, that might not impact their PC strategy, but for consoles, they are looking into the importance of exclusives and what they bring to the table for their own ecosystem. Now, another way that Sony could be looking at this situation, though, is that Xbox reportedly is working on a PC console hybrid. And if Sony views that as a threat, even in the slightest, that is another reason for them to back off on PC. They might not want their games on the next Xbox console. So I don't know. It kind of sounds like both Sony and Xbox are looking at their exclusive strategies right now, maybe in different ways. But it is still very interesting because we could be heading back to that ultra competitive mentality that consoles had in prior generations. Let me know what you all think about this, though, in the comments below. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.